Welcome to the deep dive. Across pretty much all the world's major faiths, Christianity, Islam, even Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, there's this huge central promise. The return of a great figure, the Messiah, the Comforter, the Mahdi, the Maitreya. I mean, millions right now are genuinely expecting someone to physically reappear, maybe amidst some kind of cataclysm. But what if that whole literal expectation is, missing the point? Our mission today is to really dive into some key sources exploring the writings of Abdu'l-Bahá. He was the authorized interpreter of the Baha'i faith, and he offered this really radical and unifying way to understand this concept of the return. He aimed to build a single framework that could make sense of all those apocalyptic promises from, Abraham, Moses, Christ, Muhammad, all of them. So we're looking for how he connected those dots.
Yes, and it's so important to start there. With his role as interpreter, you can't really grasp this framework without understanding that specific authority he held. He was Bahá'u'llah's son, designated to clarify these often dense, symbolic, and frankly widely misunderstood teachings. He looked at centuries of literalism, which had kind of paralyzed theological thinking in some ways, and proposed something rooted in spirit, not spectacle.
Okay.
And that central idea is really the absolute core. If you remember one thing, it's this. The return isn't the same physical body coming back. It's the remanifestation of the same divine reality. The same spirit, the same essential attributes, but appearing in a new human temple perfectly suited for the needs of a new age.
That shift from body to essence.
Exactly. That's what unlocks the coherence between all the different promises. It harmonizes everything.
Okay, let's definitely unpack that, because it immediately brings up this seeming contradiction that theologians have wrestled with forever. If they're all different individuals, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Baha'u'lláh, how can they be fundamentally the same? Especially when their specific laws or social teachings sometimes look different, even contradictory on the surface.
Right, a very valid question. And the sources we're drawing on, especially some answered questions, tackle this head on by explaining two distinct stations or aspects of these manifestations of God.
Two stations, okay.
The first is what's called the station of unity. This is their divine reality. In this essential aspect, they are absolutely one.
One? How so?
Well, think of the analogy used in the text, the Son of Truth. There's only one sun, right? Indivisible. Each manifestation is like a perfectly polished mirror. In this station of unity, every single one reflects that exact same light, that same sun. So in their spiritual essence, they are one reality.
Okay, the mirror analogy helps. The same light, different mirrors.
Precisely. But then you have the second station, which accounts for the differences we observe.
Which is?
The station of distinction. This is their human individuality. This explains why they have different names, appear in different historical eras, speak different languages, and bring specific laws or teachings tailored for that particular time and place.
So the unity is spiritual, eternal, but the distinction is human, historical, practical for its time.
Exactly. The source puts it beautifully. The reality of Christ is the same as the reality of all the manifestations of God. The difference lies in the degree of revelation, not in the essence. The light is constant, unchanging. But the mirror, the human person, the laws, the social guidance that's adapted for the age it appears in.
So if we follow that, the light being constant, the vessel changing, this just dissolves the whole problem of a literal physical return. When the scriptures promise a return, they're actually saying that same eternal Son of Truth is shining again, just through a new mirror, a new manifestation.
You've got it. That's the logical consequence.
Which then brings us squarely to maybe the biggest hurdle for many people when reading prophecy. All that really intense, cosmic, sometimes terrifying imagery. If we're not supposed to be scanning the skies for the actual body of Jesus or expecting Elijah to literally show up, what are these signs about? What should we be looking for?
That really is the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you accept the spiritual continuity, you have to then accept a spiritual interpretation of the signs associated with the return. And Abdu'l-Bahá was very clear. Prophetic language is overwhelmingly symbolic. It's spiritual communication. It's not meant to be a literal forecast of astronomy or, earthly events.
It's a different kind of language.
Absolutely. And decoding this symbolism is where the interpretation becomes incredibly practical, not just theoretical. Let's take some examples. The famous sign of the manifestation coming in the clouds. For centuries, people imagined a literal figure descending from the sky. But the sources explain these clouds actually signify the veils of human misunderstanding, the ignorance, the prejudice, the resistance that always surrounds a new manifestation and hides his true glory from most people.
So he appears amidst human confusion and opposition. Those are the clouds.
Exactly. That makes immediate historical sense, doesn't it? Every new prophet faced skepticism, rejection. They were veiled by the conditions of their time. The clouds are human, not atmospheric.
Right, that clicks. So then what about the really dramatic stuff, like the darkening of the sun and the falling of stars? That sounds pretty apocalyptic.
It does sound terrifying if taken literally. But again, applying the symbolic key. It's not about literal celestial bodies malfunctioning. It represents the decline of the previous religious systems. The sun, the previous source of spiritual guidance, loses its brightness, its influence wanes. And the stars, the religious leaders, the scholars, the teachers of that old system, they lose their spiritual illumination and fall from prominence as the new, brighter sun of truth rises.
Wow. Okay, so the end times aren't the end of the world, but the end of a religious cycle. The old light fades as the new one dawns.
Precisely. The drama is spiritual, not cosmological. The physical world continues, but the spiritual landscape is fundamentally altered.
And the other signs fit this pattern too.
Yes. Take the trumpet blast expected to signal the end. The sources say this is actually the powerful resonant call of the new revelation itself. It's the summons that spiritually awakens souls who were asleep in ignorance or materialism.
The wake-up call.
Exactly. And maybe most profoundly, the resurrection of the dead. Not bodies climbing out of graves. It signifies the spiritual resurrection of human hearts, reviving them from the death of ignorance, apathy, and heedlessness into the vibrant life of faith and conscious awareness of God.
So this whole symbolic reading, it takes the day of judgment, which has caused so much fear, and reinterprets it entirely.
Yeah.
It's not the final end of everything, but the recurring spiritual rebirth of the world that happens whenever a new manifestation arrives. It judges the old ways and inaugurates the new. It's cyclical.
A recurring moment of spiritual assessment and renewal, yes, not a one-off cosmic cataclysm.
Okay, moving on from the signs then. If we set aside literal, spectacular proofs, what is the actual verifiable evidence that this return has occurred? Specifically, how did Abdu'l-Bahá explain that the coming of Bahá'u'lláh, his father, was the fulfillment of all those promises from all the past scriptures? That's a huge claim.
It is a monumental claim. And you're right, if you're not relying on literal signs or physical miracles, the proof has to be of a different order, but just as compelling. According to Abdu'l-Bahá, the ultimate proof lies in spiritual power. The evidence is in the effects of the new revelation.
Effects like what?
You look for the fruits, essentially. Is there a tangible renewal of morals and ethics? Are human hearts being spiritually quickened, transformed? Does this new message have the power to unite previously divided peoples? Can it lay the foundations for a new, more just and unified global civilization? It's the creative word, that unique divine power to regenerate humanity, that serves as the confirmation, not checking boxes against symbolic prophecies about dates or places.
That really shifts the burden of proof, doesn't it? It moves from passively watching the sky to actively observing the transformative impact on humanity.
Precisely. You don't just see the truth, you witness what it does.
But then, what about that very famous, very enigmatic line from the New Testament? But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. If this return is a recurring cycle, part of a divine law, why the secrecy? Why the mystery about the timing?
That's a great question, and Abdu'l-Bahá offered a really insightful explanation for that. He taught that when Christ said that, he was referring specifically to the hidden timing of the next great manifestation who would come after him, like Bahá'u'lláh. This element of the unknown hour is actually a recurring feature in every religious cycle. The exact timing is known only to God.
But why? What's the purpose of keeping it hidden?
Well, it serves a profound spiritual and practical purpose. Think about it. If people knew the exact date centuries in advance, what might happen?
Complacency. People might just sit back and wait, or maybe get caught up in calculations.
Exactly. There could be apathy, or maybe fanaticism focused only on that future date. The unknown day keeps believers spiritually alert, focused on their own inner readiness now. It encourages detachment from rigid predictions and fosters humility. It replaces potential fear or complacency with a state of constant inner vigilance and preparedness.
So it's designed to keep people focused on their own spiritual growth and character development in the present, rather than just calendar watching for the future. That's actually quite brilliant.
It ensures the focus remains on spiritual readiness, not just temporal anticipation.
And this idea of a recurring event governed by divine law, but with an unknown timing, this seems to lead naturally into a bigger concept.
Absolutely. It takes the return from being seen as maybe one or two isolated events in history and elevates it to an eternal principle. This is the law of progressive revelation. The universe, according to this understanding, is continually guided by an ever-renewing flow of divine truth and guidance. It's not static.
The perpetual return.
Yes, the perpetual return. As Abdu'l-Bahá put it in the Paris talks, something like, every time that the sun of truth sets in the horizon of one faith, it rises resplendent in another. This return is constant. It happens historically with a succession of manifestations, and it also needs to happen personally, within the individual soul, recognizing and responding to the current revelation.
Okay, this is where the theology really seems to leap off the page and become incredibly relevant for us right now, globally. The source material highlights, 4 key implications for today? This feels like the practical payoff of understanding this interpretation.
It absolutely translates into a guide for living in the modern world.
So the first point is that this continuous cycle preserves hope, right? It means divine guidance hasn't ended. Humanity isn't left adrift.
Crucially important, yes, hope is maintained. God's connection with humanity is ongoing.
Second, it fundamentally abolishes superstition. By showing revelation follows a spiritual law, it frees faith from depending on literal interpretations of signs or expecting physical miracles, which often lead to disappointment when they don't happen as imagined.
It replaces magical thinking with spiritual understanding. A huge shift.
And the third one, this feels massive. It harmonizes religions. If each faith is a chapter in one single unfolding divine story, where each return fulfills the last and prepares for the next,
then the whole basis for religious conflict and competition just dissolves. It reframes religious diversity as stages in a unified process, not opposing truths. That's potentially world-changing.
It moves from seeing other religions as wrong to seeing them as earlier parts of the same narrative. And the fourth implication,
It inspires action. Understanding the coming of the kingdom isn't about passively waiting for some future divine intervention. It becomes about actively building that better world, now working for justice, promoting education for all, fostering unity, eliminating prejudice. The fulfillment is participatory.
we build the kingdom through our actions, inspired by the latest revelation.
Precisely. It connects directly back to the spiritual purpose. Recognizing a new manifestation isn't an endpoint. It's the starting gun for a new, greater cycle of human effort and progress. Abdu'l-Bahá called this the day of attainment. Yes, past promises are fulfilled, but he emphasized this is just the beginning of what humanity can now achieve together. It demands both humility and immense effort.
Okay, let's try and synthesize this. The core idea we've unpacked today is that the promised return isn't about the same physical person coming back. It's the renewal of the same divine spirit, the same light shining through a new human mirror, a new manifestation. And this understanding comes from reading scripture symbolically, spiritually.
That's the essence of it.
It's a really profound shift. It pulls religious expectation away from waiting for cosmic events and places the focus squarely on inner spiritual reality, on character transformation, and on practical action for global betterment.
Yes. And perhaps here's a final thought, something this concept of continuous revelation really invites you, the listener, to consider. According to Abdu'l-Bahá, recognizing Bahá'u'lláh doesn't slam the book of prophecy shut. It just turns the page, opening a new chapter for humanity. It implies we should always live in a state of spiritual awareness, of vigilance.
So the story continues.
Always. So the question to mull over is this. If divine guidance is continuous, how do you learn to recognize that reflected light of the eternal return? That same underlying spiritual reality, not just in past prophets, but right now? How do you see it manifesting in the moral progress we strive for, in acts of genuine kindness and service, in the new insights and discoveries that help humanity advance today? The light is always shining. The real challenge is recognizing the mirrors it's using in our own time.